today we're going to try a little bit of a different format from the usual thing. So instead of doing a presentation, we're going to do like an interactive, more interactive kind of thing. So I'll send everyone a link in the chat and please open it and also share my screen. Let me know through the participants panel when you have it open. So click yes when you have it open. I think a new person entered, so I'll send the link again. Yeah. Did you say something, Sammy? You were muted.
What's up?
Oh, I thought you said something. Never mind.
No.
So yeah, once you have it open, just click the yes button in the participants panel. Okay, Russell, yeah, we haven't checked the new registrations yet, so we'll make sure to add you once the meeting is over. Or can someone else do that? Russell messaged me that he's not in the mailing list. So give one of the officers your email and they'll add you. All right, so it looks like most people have it open now, so we'll just get started. Alrighty, so today we'll be covering something called event listeners, which basically merges the JavaScript we learned last week and the DOM that we learned 2 weeks ago. So to quickly review what we learned 2 weeks ago, we covered HTML, which is the thing that controls what the user sees on a website. So the entirety of a website is first called a window, if you recall. And inside the window is the document, and visitors can only see what is inside that document. And the document is also called the DOM, and I might call it the DOM in this presentation too. So to control what users see in the document, you type up something called HTML or hypertext markup language. And if you remember, this was our simple HTML example. So you specify tags using this bracket notation, and inside you can put anything. For example, this H1 puts a giant big text header, and this is a paragraph block, and things like that. And you can also assign attributes to elements. So for example, this input box has an ID called input box ID, and the default value is a text called text input. Okay, and last week we learned something called JavaScript, which was basically just another programming language, and we covered the basics. So if you remember, console.log is analogous to print in almost every other language. You can write functions using the function keyword, and you can just add parameters like this. You can return values using the return keyword. And in JavaScript, variables are dynamic, so you can just say variable or var, name of your variable equals, and then the value you want to assign to it. Loops are like every other language. So you can say for and then I is 0 and then loop until I is 10. So this code will loop exactly 10 times. You can also use a while loop. So while this condition inside is true, it will keep looping. And you can also do if statements. So if this inside statement is true, then it'll do this. If it's not, then it'll do this. So that's pretty similar to every other language, but we haven't merged the two together yet, right? So that's what we'll be doing today. So to get started, first, we'll be doing some Russian super intelligence hacky thing called inspect element. If you've ever heard of it, it's very, very top secret. So you're learning something new today. So right click on the page, right? And you'll see a button called inspect. I think in Chrome it's inspect element, but it's the same thing. So just click on that first. And I know pretty much every single person has played around with inspect element before, right? But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be clicking on console over here on the top right. I'll zoom in here so you can see it better. So you click this console button up here. Let me clear everyone's yeses, clear all. Once you're here and once you can open the console, let me know by clicking yes in the participants panel. Oh, it doesn't let you click inspect if you're using a school account. Well, do you have your own browser? If you have your own browser, just open that up. Or you can go in incognito or something, I don't know. Yeah, okay, incognito works. Okay, cool. Well, you know, there's always Edge if your Chrome doesn't work. Yeah, Control-Shift-I, or you can press F12 on your keyboard. Again, once you get here, make sure you click the yes button in the participants panel. Just right-click, inspect console. Ronak Firefox. Imagine using Gecko. This post was made by Chromium Gang. Okay, Ronak, okay, fine. Firefox has superior CSS, but JavaScript in Chromium is just plain better. Okay. If anyone's having trouble, the people who haven't clicked yes in the participants panel yet, let us know what issues you're having so we can resolve it. All right, I'm just going to continue and yeah. All right, let me clear the participants panel. All right. So basically, event listeners are things that you can use to detect user actions, right? So what you do is you attach a function to a certain element on the page. And when an event, quote unquote, fires, the function is called. And first, you have to choose the element you want to attach your event to, right? And we do that using something called a query selector or a selector. The syntax looks like this. So here, you call your element whatever you want. I just called it element because it's really simple. And then the element I want has an ID called input1, for example. Then I can get the element by calling document.getElementById and then the element name or element ID. So if I were to type this in here, copy it and paste it in the console and press enter, then type element, it gives me the element on the page that corresponds to this query. So this thing, if you hover over it, it'll show a little pop-up on the bottom left, and it'll show exactly where it is. So let me scroll down the page a bit. There it is. That's the element I'm referring to. So this element right here refers to this box right here. Right. So the way you attach an event listener is this syntax over here, where you say element dot add event listener, and then the event name, and then the function you want to be called when the event fires. For example, there are a ton of pretty common event names. For example, click, drag, key down, key up, etc., etc. So, for example, if I attach an event listener called click, and then give it a function, this function will be called when the button is clicked. So let's do a quick example here. Here we have just a simple button, right? And let's say we want to do something when the button is clicked. Well, we just do document.getElementById button1. So that gets this button over here. And then you can attach an event listener over here called click, and then you give it this function right here. Let me zoom out a bit. Yeah, so if you copy and paste this into your console, then press enter, and then you click the button, it should show a message like this. Right, pretty cool. Now, you see this mouse event thing over here. And then inside the mouse event, if you click and open it up, you can see some additional information about the click. For example, if the Alt key was pressed, if any other buttons were pressed, the mouse position on the page, client X and client Y, if the control key was pressed, there's a lot of other stuff too, where on the page the button was, where your scroll position was, and yeah, there's a lot of things in here that you can use. For example, if you're building a game with buttons, right, and you wanted to know exactly how the user pressed the button, you can use this information. All right, next, after clicking, let's do input key presses. We have an input box over here with just a simple text inside. And let's say we want to detect when the user presses a key inside this box. So we basically just get the element and then add an event listener called key down. And then we want that to call this function that just prints out what key was pressed. So if you copy this and paste it in the console and press enter, and then type something in here, it should log every single key that was pressed inside the box. Let me know if anyone's having trouble with this so far. And if everything's been working so far, just press yes in the participants panel. All right, so we're going to move on to the next example. So here, let's say you wanted to detect when the user hovered their mouse over a box, right? You can do that by getting this element over here called red box that I just created. And then you add the event listener mouse over. And then when the user mouses over it, you want to log the event. So let's copy that and put it in here. So when I hover over it, it says a mouse over event was fired. And inside here, you can see a bunch of extra information, like if the Alt key was pressed, etc. And in this context, the position of the mouse is more relevant because it's a mouse event. So you can use this client X and client Y, for example. All right, and another thing you can do is use a common function to handle all these events. So say I have a function called callback, and inside I just log the key that was pressed and the ID of the box it was pressed in. So this is called ID input 1, input 2, and input 3. And I just want to log out, print out what the ID was. I don't want to type the same function 3 times, right? What's the point? So I can just pass this callback function into the event listener over here. So I write one callback function, put it in the console, and then I can just type these 3, put it in the console, bam. And then when I type something in each of the boxes, the code knows exactly which box the text was typed into. Let me check the chat for messages. Chat. How to see if Alt F4 is pressed. Good one. How to see if Control W is pressed. All right, so you can start to see how this is really powerful, right? For example, if you were making an online game and you wanted to know which keys the user is pressing, this is the way you would do it. So you would detect, like, for example, if they press the W key, then you move the character forward. If they press the S key, you move them backward, things like that. All right, so to review, basically event listeners are functions attached to elements, and event listeners fire or get called when the user does an action. And you can access information about the event through an event object passed to your function. And the event object contains like a ton of extra information you can use to make your program do advanced things. So you can try this out yourself using a REPL.it. So let's go to REPL.it and create a new REPL. I'm not even signed in. Right, so again, we'll create a new REPL. Click HTML, CSS, JS, and create. Ronak is very happy that I'm using REPL.it. So once everyone is here, again, participants panel, so I know where you are. How curious. Oh, it got cleared. Whoops. Someone, yeah, just press yes again. So I think someone accidentally cleared it. Whoopsies. Yeah, so just go to REPL.it Oh, why is it yellow for me? I think it's because I have dark mode on. Yeah. Ah, my eyes. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. There's dark mode in REPL? What? Where? Where? Where did I click? Where did I click? Where did I click for this? Oh, wait, is that in here? Oh, okay, that's much better. Wait, let me check the participants panel to see if anyone's still showing. Again, starting to sound like a broken record, but just press yes in the participants panel once you've created a REPL. And if you're just not following along, that's fine too. Just press the which button should we choose for that? let's do a coffee button, need a break button. All right, while everyone's making their files, I'm just gonna cover what each of these files are. Script.js is your JavaScript file, so you would put all your JavaScript in here. Index.html, they have a boilerplate for you, so you don't have to write extra code. So you put your code in HTML in this body tag right here. Right, so for example, let's create an input box. Input value equals some random default value. ID equals my input box. Let me zoom in. Be careful with your cases or like capitalization because IDs are, I think, case sensitive. So once you have that, we can go into our JavaScript file. Oh, you can't even multitask on. Okay, REPL is kind of. Anyways, so we have this input on our page now. Let me reload. REPL's being a bit slow. Ronak. My REPL isn't loading. Well, that's very, very interesting. Oh, I just didn't click run. Oh my God, I'm stupid. All right, moving on. So now you have an input element on the page and you can see that right over here, right? Random default value. So let's say we want to detect when the user presses, presses the space key, for example. All right, so let's get the element first. So var input box is equal to, what did I call my box? My input box. Okay, copy that. Document dot get element by ID. Make sure this ID, the second or the D is lowercase because otherwise it won't work. And then parentheses inside in quotes, put the ID. Semicolon. Yep, I'm resisting the urge to use query selector. Yeah. So now once we have the input box, we can attach an event listener. So .add event listener, and then let's say key press, and then function event. And first, let's just get all key presses. So console.log event. And when we run this, oh, what did I do wrong? Cannot read property add event listener of null. Okay, that is because we have to, the easiest way to do this is just to put this input before the script. So make sure this input box comes before the script right here. So just flip these two around. And when you click around, it should work. Yep, all right. So when you press a key in this box, it should print out the event. But this is kind of hard to read, so let's instead log the key. So .key. Right, now we know exactly what key is being pressed. Right, so now if we want to make sure that we do something only when the user presses space inside the box, we can check using an if statement if the key is a space. So if, and then in parentheses, event.key is equal to, with double equals, because we're comparing things, space. Bracket, again, console.log, space was pressed. And if we click run over here, and type random things, and then press space, it'll only log something in the console when space is pressed. Yeah, using this REPL, you can experiment with a bunch of different listeners. I'll link the complete list of listeners that you can use. Event listener list. It's from MDN. Event reference. So yeah, there are a ton, as you can see. I'll send that in the chat right now. Yeah, you should try experimenting with a bunch of different listeners, like a button. Let's do a button right now. Button, and then some button slash button. Run. Now we have a button on the page, right? But when you click it, nothing happens. So let's change that. For button, my button or button or whatever, button is equal to document get. We can also use a different command called get element by get element. Well, I forgot the syntax. Hold on. Get element by tag name, I think. Get elements by tag name, I think. Yeah, get elements by tag name. Yeah. So you can put in here button, and then this right over here, this right over here will be a list of buttons on the page. And we want only the first button on the page because there's only one button on the page, right? So we should treat it as an array and just take the 0th element. And now this button over here points to this button. Okay, so button.add event listener. Click function event. And then now let's say when the button is clicked, we want to console.log the value of this input box. We can do that by doing console.log button clicked value of input is, and then plus, and then input box dot value. So now if you run this and click the button, it'll console.log the value of the input box at the time it was clicked. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. If you're interested, just keep experimenting with these different event listeners and try making some interactive website on your own.